Nicole Young. I'm with an organization called Let Them Breathe. Our mission is to promote mask choice in schools for our school children. We're here today to bring awareness to the fact that even though the June 15th date was thrown out, nothing changes for our children. At this point, all the teachers or anyone who wants to have been vaccinated has been vaccinated. Right now, mask wearage should be more of a choice than a mandate or a rule. And I'm here with Jonathan from School Choice California, and he has a few things. A few words he'd like to say. So let's kick this thing off. Jonathan, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Zackerson, founder of Reopen California Schools. Over the past 14 months, we have seen trust in government health institutions erode, especially here in California. School closures, spring of 2020, and other mitigations imposed last spring were panic-driven and based on judgment, not data. By summer 2020, data had emerged showing schools could safely open. In several states and other countries, schools did just that. They opened. California took a different approach. At the behest of governors, campaign donors, California's teacher unions, CDPH kept schools closed and adopted policies that came at great cost to our children and our state, and was not based on data or science. We even saw this same interference January and February of this year by national teachers unions and the CDC, unduly influencing government health policy, hurting our children. This past March, a California judge found key provisions of CDPH's safe school guidelines keeping kids out of school were arbitrary in nature and had no scientific backing. This opened the door for several schools to open full-time in the spring. This was great in some areas and too late in other areas where local school boards were more feckless than our governor. Fast forward to today, and we continue to see our governor and CDPH make policy that is rooted in politics, not science, and certainly not in the best interest of our children. The simple fact that Newsom extended mask requirements despite other health agencies countering this and selecting June 15th as the date to lift them when schools are out of session shows he wants to avoid conflicts with teacher unions and not conflict with communicable diseases. And just yesterday, Newsom backtracked and said that he plans to continue to keep California in a state of emergency, leaving him with usurped power indefinitely. But what we do know today, we know that several of the COVID mitigations imposed last school year were ineffective. As good as intended as they were, the data is clear. Most of them did absolutely nothing to reduce spread, and in some cases may have made COVID worse. All the while, these same mitigations caused harm to our children. That is why we, parent groups across the state, are coming together as parents to keep healthy kids in school and are preparing to sue CDPH and Governor Newsom if any of the mitigation strategies hurting children in next year's reopening guidelines are there. Namely, quarantining children without symptoms, masking healthy kids, and routine testing of asymptomatic children. For the schools that were open for part of last school year, parents and administrators know the cruel nature of close contact quarantines. These quarantines kept healthy kids out of school unnecessary for weeks, often out longer than the kid who might have had COVID. And what we also know is contracting COVID at school is extremely rare. And what the data shows now is that quarantining asymptomatic kids who have not tested positive for COVID did nothing to stop the spread of COVID, but it certainly denied them their right to an education. We also have plenty of correlative studies comparing states and countries with mask mandates in schools compared to those that didn't. And what is clear is that the mask mandates in schools had no detectable difference on the spread of COVID. Many parts of the world, kids 12 and under never wore masks. And this summer and next school year, kids should not be wearing masks. Additionally, at this point, every single worried or at-risk individual or otherwise healthy adult has access to vaccines. Almost 2/3 of Californians have had at least one dose of the vaccine. On top of that, there's a very large percentage of Californians that have immunity from natural infection. And there's testing. There have been several reports of problems with COVID tests in California, especially in the Valencia State Lab. On top of that, medical experts suggest with COVID rates as low as they are, and in the state of COVID, as much as 90% of positive tests from asymptomatic individuals are false positives. And it is very likely the other 10% is not contagious. Routine testing of healthy asymptomatic kids keeps them out of school, keeps kids around them out of school, and has no place in next year's guidelines. But let's pretend for a moment that any of the above-mentioned mitigations had a modest impact at slowing the spread of COVID. With COVID rates so low, immunity so high, and odds of catching COVID at school very low even when it was at its worst, odds of catching COVID now at school is so low it's nearly zero. And if you were to double or cut a number in half, that is almost zero, it's still almost zero. Ending these now obsolete and harmful mitigations for next school year are not just the opinions of us parents. These are the opinions of medical experts. For weeks, several experts have been calling to end these protocols for kids, and just yesterday, Dr. Jean Noble, Associate Professor of Emergency Medicine and Director of COVID Response at UCSF wrote, Dr. Monica Gandhi and I call for the removal of COVID restrictions in K-12 schools in the fall and mask mandates distancing cohorts, and ask California to declare a mental health emergency among California adolescents. That is what the experts are saying, but Newsom has shown he doesn't like to listen. We do not want to sue, but sadly, that appears to be the only way our government will do the right thing. We are in a state of emergency, but not the kind of emergency Newsom says we're in. We have an emergency with a governor abusing power. We have mental health emergency with our youth. And we have an education crisis created by this governor, CDPH, and teachers' unions. We demand that Newsom and CDPH let our children get back to normal. If Newsom fails at this, we demand our state legislature hold him accountable. And if not, we'll sue CDPH and Governor Newsom in court, because we are not going to give up on our children. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. To learn more, please join our Facebook groups, Reopen California Schools or Let Them Breathe. You can also visit the websites reopencaliforniaschools.com or letthembreathe.net. You can follow me on Twitter at ReopenCASchools. And lastly, but certainly not least, please go to our GoFundMe page for the lawsuit. You can go to the GoFundMe and search Keep Healthy Kids in Schools, or you can go to my Twitter feed and it's pinned to the top of my Twitter feed. And again, that's at ReopenCASchools. Thank you.
Woo! Okay. All right.
So Jonathan did a great job, very thorough.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jonathan. So Let Them Breathe organization, we are about 5,000 families strong. We are pro-science, pro-safety, and pro-smiles. It's a nonprofit community, and we're advocating for a rational, equitable, and science-based approach to eliminate COVID-19 mask requirements for children. Our children's mental, physical, and social health are harmed by masking. I know this as I am a parent. I have a 17-year-old son who opted out of in-person learning because of the anxiety and pressure caused by masking. I also have a son who suffers from something called speech ataxia. I didn't realize at the time how deeply he depended on facial expressions for communication. Once that was taken away, there was a lot more tears, there was a lot more fits, and there was a lack of communication for my child. And I am sure he is not the only one. Masks inhibit a child's ability to effectively communicate with their peers and teachers. Masks can also cause increases in heart rate and skin temperature, decreased oxygen, difficulty breathing, dizziness, listlessness, impaired thinking, vision, and concentration problems. Our children can't wait. We have waited long enough. Discrepancies have been revealed showing that governments and school officials have not acted in our kids' best interests. We are taking a grassroots and legal action, which Jonathan spoke of, to establish mask choice at camps and schools. We cannot delay. Most children are not at high risk for COVID. The youth COVID death rate is statistically zero. As Jonathan mentioned, you cut zero in half, you still get zero. Studies show that youth are not vectors for transmission, and unmasked children do not significantly increase community spread. Adults can choose to be vaccinated, and children must be able to choose to unmask. Those of high risk can choose to protect themselves, so it is overdue, long overdue, for our youth to unmask. All doctors, let me rephrase that, most doctors agree our children need more normalcy. well-respected medical professionals, including, as Jonathan spoke of, Dr. Monica Gandhi, Dr. Tracy Beth Hope, and Dr. Lucy McBride are all advocating for the universal elimination of mask mandates for children. So I'd like everybody here to join our Facebook group. You'll receive valuable resources through our newsletters, rallies, and learn about in-person events and explore our website. It is long since been time for our kids to breathe freely and share their smiles. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes the press conference, and we're going to go ahead and do our march. Okay, follow Nicole.
Their masks on. Their masks on. Oh, I learned that we were AP and then I knew this walking like a ball of Jericho.
Keep going, keep going. All right, woohoo! What's that chant?
Oh, I forgot it. It has to be like on a whim. Brilliant. Hey, hey.